Okay, this lesson for our Koine Project class, we've discussed things that are said, that is the talk versus that which is written, the text. And I'll demonstrate now the power of priming, which is according to what's said and never what's written. So, for example, Arminians and in Arminianism is the rejection of once saved, always saved, but not the rejection of once primed, always primed. That's quite ironic. So quickly, I'll just show a few texts here and show you why they have no interest in it. 1 John 5:1, it says, everyone who is believing that Jesus is the Christ has been, this is a perfect, passive, indicative, third person singular, has been fathered. There we go. And then, of course, the continuation is where the word always. And then the action, it's passive voice, always being fathered. Now, what fascinated me as a social scientist, I was stunned that when I would say this to people who could never have heard this, it would never have been spoken and hardly spoken even in covenant communities, new covenant communities where they preach the gospel of the grace of God. They preach what the Bible teaches, once saved, always saved, but they may not have ever heard, even in one of the Lord's churches, once fathered, always being fathered. So when I would ask or mention it, they were already primed to negate it and had never even heard it. Now, isn't that fascinating? So that's why we were trained as youngsters to go out and witness and don't begrudge the sinner, hate the sin, and don't despise or belittle their faith traditions and where they come from. It's like a creed, it's like a culture, it's like the way we respect race and culture and creed and political. So it's from fathered, ganao, fathered. But remember, they're already saying no, and they've never even heard it said. So the next one is Ephesians 2:8. So this is fathered by the Father, and this is Ephesians 2:8. It refers to we are ones who, having been, this is a perfect passive participle, nominative masculine plural, who we are ones who, having been, so I'll put here ones who, there we go, having been saved, of course, are always being saved. That shows the continuation and results always being saved. So it's actually a text in the Bible. Now, they know to say no to that one because even free grace communities, those who teach the free gift of God and trust the giver, those who teach trust Jesus Christ for everlasting life, those who are persuaded as the Father has given persuasion to every man when he raised Jesus Christ from the dead. And then there are those who negate persuasion, John 3:36, the one who is believing into Jesus, the Son, is already having everlasting life, but the one who is negating persuasion by the Son will not see life. And this is from saved. Saved. And of course, you see that ending. So it's fathering, saving. And then this next one, which is really interesting, it's John 17:19. Jesus said, I have sanctified myself in order that they might be, again, perfect passive participle, nominative masculine plural. They might be ones who, having been sanctified, and of course it continues, are always being passive, always acting upon us once for all, and always being sanctified. Now again, your Arminian friend has been primed, and they're saying no to something they've never heard. They have never heard. And yet they're ready to say no. Now that will shock you when you hear this because it's almost surreal until you experience it enough and start noticing, oh, they're prepared to negate, and they don't even know how they came to that. They really don't even know how they came to this. So sanctify, of course, it would be ing. And then the next one here, there's certainly, I was really intrigued with this one because I knew they had never heard this one, the publican and the Pharisee. And this is Jesus Christ himself making this decree. And he said, this man, speaking of the publican, perfect passive participle, nominative masculine singular, speaking of the publican, he says that this man went down to his house as one, I'll try to make my marker, one who, having been justified, was always being, oh my goodness, messed up, always being justified. Now again, what causes them to be triggered by things like this? Except priming. They've never looked it up. They probably never applied what they learned in grammar school. My 6-year-old granddaughter, I had mentioned onomatopoeia, and she raised her hand in the assembly before Sunday school, and she said, Papa, it's onomatopoeia, and that refers to that device where a sound of something like buzz, a bee makes, buzzing sound, becomes the word, like barbarians. They sounded like they were going bar, so the word's barbarian. So children know these things, but they're never taught to apply it to the text, because what would happen to the professional clergy if people began to read the Bible for themselves and notice, hey, it doesn't say what you were saying. So Jesus said here, Granville Sharp, John 11:26, the one who is living. Notice here's the Granville here. That is believing into me. And here this ume, it's absolutely not. Double negative. Absolutely not. Very emphatic. And this is second aorist active subjunctive. Might die. Absolutely might not die. There we go. Might die. Into the age. Notice he really doubled down, made his decree where no one could refute it. Into the age. So into eternity. And someone mentioned the rich man in hell who asked Lazarus to go back and to dip the tip of his finger in water to cool his tongue, for he's tormented in this flame. And they said, well, there's someone that's in eternity thirsting. So he was never someone that had trusted Jesus Christ for everlasting life. Matter of fact, he's the one that then began to modify the message by telling Abraham, would you send someone back to my father's house so that he might warn my brothers? Of course, you know how that works. He's already modified the message. And then he was told by Abraham that they have Moses and the prophets. And it says, since they are not listening to Moses and the prophets, they would not be persuaded. So there's that word again. But this is it. Ironic that people would embrace to their death, once primed, always primed. And that would be the root, and the fruit of it would be negating, once saved, always saved, having been once fathered, always fathered, once saved, always saved, once sanctified, always sanctified. Now here on sanctification, the Bible talks about being transformed by the renovation of our mind. Now that is discipleship, and that specifically is in an ecclesia, a group of disciples who are covenanted together, studying and working to not only think it, say it, but then to live it out. And that's unto God's glory, and that's by Christ Jesus, and that's in the ecclesia. So enjoy this lesson. Have a blessed day.